because like when you start learning about systems, everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out.
Now, the rest of the story.
So don't let them steal your life.
Alright, let's get right into this. Microaggressions. The thing with microaggressions is they're first world problems. How something is taken by a person is that person's fault. So if you're walking down the street and you're a woman and some guy says nice ass, you can either take it as a compliment, you can take it as an insult, you can take it however you want, but as long as you keep walking and forget about it, it's not a big deal. When you turn around and start yelling at that person and causing a problem, that's when it becomes a problem, not when the person's saying it. So this whole microaggression, the whole Anita Sarkeesian thing where she said that everything's, a problem, you have to point it out. Well, like I'm always talking about with stupid smart people, here's the problem with that statement. If you have to point it out, then nobody's noticing it, which means it's not a problem. If you have to point out something like that, then it's a problem. And the problem is you. You're seeing things that aren't there, and you're having to point them out to other people that aren't noticing them. I'm pretty sure that if I'm sitting in a cafe and somebody walks in and says, I got a gun, and every Jew in this place, I'm gonna shoot you. Fucking Jews. I'm pretty sure that everybody's gonna consider that pretty aggressive, and every Jew in the place is gonna start looking like, oh fuck, and everybody's gonna know that that's an aggression. You don't have to explain that, But if somebody comes in and says something like to trans people. I was watching a friend's videos today and they were talking about people saying like, wow, I would have never known you were trans, and acting like it's a microaggression because somebody is acting like they think that you're passing as a transgender, so that's a microaggression because somebody made a compliment to you and told you that you didn't look trans. You looked like a female. You looked like a real female. And they have it in their mind, as most people are rightly so. Very few people do actually pass. Lots of people, you can see that they're trans. So when you actually really look like a woman, it's kind of cool. Most people think that, hey, that's pretty neat. You actually look like a woman. You don't look like a guy in drag, which you can take that however you want, but it's a true statement, That's the thing with the feminists. They don't like truth. They don't like people to talk about the truth. Sorry, truth hurts, and things are true. Now, something that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to start doing some clinical psychological trials, and I wanted to maybe come up with something that I've been thinking about for a long time. There's a clinical diagnosis in psychology known as androphobia. Androphobia is, to explain it, it's kind of like people who are scared of snakes. But they're not only, my mother was one of these people, they're not only scared of snakes that they see, and a snake that might be, 100 yards away from you, or one that's like 50 feet in front of you just kind of crawling across, and it's a gardener snake that's not going to bite you. But they're also scared of ones on TV. And it's basically an irrational fear of men is what androphobia is. What I surmise is that you will find that most of the leaders in the feminist community are androphobic in nature, because that's the only thing that could describe the need to come up with a statement like microaggressions and acting like men are going to literally hurt you from a Twitter comment, from somebody disagreeing with something that you've said that is an obvious false statement, for somebody disagreeing with you, that is in some way an aggression towards you because they have said that what you said was untrue and have facts to back that up, and now all of a sudden that's an aggression. That's a psychological disorder. That's the only way I could, you can't logically look at a statement like that and think that it's not something wrong with the person's mental capacity. And the fact is you have the right to be offended, but you don't have the right to not be offended. Okay? Now what that statement means is something very simple. You can take something any way you want. Look at religion. Religion, they can read the book and 1,000 people will say it's something different, depends on who you're talking to. But when somebody says something to you, it's you, not them, that escalate it and turn it into something else. Most trans people, when they go out and they're not passing yet, will make people, they'll think that people are looking at them, they're staring at them, people are judging them, stuff like that. A lot of times people don't even give a fuck about you. They just see you as another person and they don't even pay attention to you. They got their own lives to lead. So most people aren't even really caring about you, and if they do, it's just to look at you and go like, it's a dude dressed up in a girl's clothes. And then that's it. They don't think any further than that. But it's you that take it much further, Like when somebody makes a compliment to you, like, wow, you're really pretty. And, and then they say, are you trans? And sometimes people just want to know, they're curious. They're curious. And these people actually think that asking somebody about their genitalia is in some way, an aggression. And it's not. It's just a thing. You could just tell them, I don't answer those kind of questions, sorry, That's all you have to say. It's not an aggression. It's just people are curious, they want to know if you're pre-op or post-op, things like that. People are like, oh, it's a microaggression. Oh, they're trying to be an asshole. No, you're being an asshole because you're making it hard for people to associate with you, which is why it's making it even harder for people to see trans people as somebody that they can have a friendship with or talk to, because you guys are so fucking annoying. I'm a trans person myself, but I don't give a fuck. A lot of trans people have been indoctrinated into this androphobic cult known as feminism. And the androphobic cult has got these people twisted up so much that they don't understand they're making themselves unsafe. You're making yourself unsafe because you're literally going around looking at everything and every person that talks to you and saying that it's an aggression. And then you're pissing these people off. These people just want to be able to have a conversation with somebody and find out a little bit about you. When they say you're trans, when you say you're trans, or they figure out that you're trans, they're like, oh, cool, I've never met a trans person. Are you pre-op or post-op? It's a legitimate question, They just want to know, have you had the surgeries? Have you had a boob job and all that stuff yet? Have you done anything? That's kind of something that you would ask a normal person, When they say I'm married, or I'm going to get married, or, you know, I've been married. Did you have any kids? You know? Do you have stretch marks? You know? Did you have a cesarean section? You know? These are just things that normal people will ask somebody to find out about you. They're not being an asshole, and it's not aggressive. And you can choose to answer or not answer those questions. You know? Depends on how well you know the person. Sometimes they just want to know about you. You know? So the way you take something is what makes it aggressive. It's you. It's inside you. You can't put that on somebody else. That's not their fault. So this whole microaggression thing that's going on now is all set up, I believe, through androphobia. That's the only way you can come up with these statements. To like read a book that a man has wrote and then come up with the statement that it is in some way aggressive to you when it's written as literature, that it is somehow aggressive to you. It's going to cause men to harm you. That is a psychological disorder, and it's known as androphobia. There is no way you can look at written text and say that that is going to harm you in some way. It can't. The only way that that can harm you is if you internalize it and make it harm you. So everybody needs to put down their little blankets and take their thumb out of their mouth and grow the fuck up. You know? If somebody is walking down the street and they grab your ass even, you know, you are the one, if you turn around and slap that person, then you've just escalated it, you know. So you can take that as, oh, that's victim shaming and victim blaming. It's not. It's not. If somebody does that to you, you can just say, hey, get your hands off me, and then keep walking. You know, you don't have to make that something it's not. If you turn around and you start slapping that person and swinging your purse at them and going off on them, what they did wasn't that was too much for what they did. You know, somebody touched your ass or you know, something like that. And this is what usually happens with a lot of transgenders and a lot of feminists, is they take things too far. You know, something that wasn't really that big of a deal, they escalate it to where it's a huge fucking deal. And that's something they like to do. They like to escalate things. And that's why I'm saying a lot of this stuff is actually what's making women and transgenders, and especially feminists, unsafe. And the big problem that we're having now is a lot of other women are starting to realize that as well. Women are starting to realize that feminists are making them unsafe through these kind of things. Not only that, but they're also finding out, I've talked about it before with the college, a lot of men are not going to college anymore. So a lot of women go to college. The only reason why most women go to college is to find a boyfriend or a husband. Sorry, women, that's just a fact. And the problem is a lot of men aren't going to college anymore. They can't go to college. If they do go to college, it's for something like mechanics or welding or something like that, where they're in college for 2 years and gone, maybe even a year and gone. So when women get to the point where they're getting a bachelor's degree, there's almost no men, you know. The average right now is out of 100% of people who apply for college and who start going to college, 25% of those people will graduate. And out of that 25%, 68% are women with fluff degrees, like art majors, art history majors, you know, things like that. They're all like teaching degrees, nursing degrees, you know, things like that, fluff degrees that won't make you a lot of money in life. And most of those people that go into those fields, these women, only go in long enough to find a husband, have kids, and then they usually retire. Most of them don't go back to work, and if they do, it ends up being a part-time position. That's just a fact, you know. Work in society. The way these women are approaching their life in society is the problem, you know. And this needs to stop. This needs to be nipped in the bud. But these women are starting to realize when they go to college that there's no men. There's no men around, you know. And the ones that are there, sometimes they're so scared to even talk to a woman because they know there's all these fake rape claims coming out, you know. The only place that a woman doesn't have agency is when they're in the position of being drunk or they've had a few drinks and then they have sex with somebody. And for a man, it's just a mistake, you know. That's why they call it beer goggles, you know. For a woman, a month later, you can say somebody raped you. They got you drunk and raped you. That's the only place where agency isn't a thing, you know. Typically, agency, like say if a man is driving down the street and he's drunk and he hits somebody on a bicycle, well, he's going to go to jail for homicide, you know. If a woman does that, same thing. If a man gets drunk at a gay bar and goes home with a gay man and he has sex and then says the man raped him, everybody's going to laugh at him. If a woman has 2 drinks, goes home with a guy, and then a month later says he raped her, he'll probably end up in jail for 5 years. It's the only place where agency is not a thing. And that's a problem. And I believe most of this, I would say 85 to 90% of this, stems from androphobia. Most of these women have an irrational fear of men. They think that men are literally, whether they are present, whether they are swinging punches at you, no matter what they're doing, a man in your vicinity or in your purview of your mind is hurting you, is going to harm you in some way. That's going to cause you problems and ill will in your life. That is a psychological disorder. So I can talk more about this, but I was just wanting to come on and talk a little bit about androphobia and about this irrational fear of men, which brings about statements like microaggressions, which are not a thing. Microaggressions are not a thing. It's a way for somebody to make up things to make other people have to pay more attention to you than they are. That's the problem. I think with a lot of women and a lot of transgenders, people don't pay attention to you a lot. You feel like you're an outcast and you don't have a lot of friends, you know, and you don't have boyfriends and you don't have a lot of stuff like that. And a lot of women, if they say they're feminists, are kind of kicked out of a lot of stuff. A lot of women don't want to hang out with you. Mostly no men want to hang out with you unless they're white knight simp manginas. So you get into this situation where you want people to acknowledge that you're there, and a lot of these feminists, I believe, they feel that any recognition is recognition. So they'll just act like a total douche and yell and scream and say that you're microaggressions and all this stuff, and they get people to actually have to think about that person. When somebody comes into the room, I have to spend an exorbitant amount of my mental capacity to think about how I'm gonna talk to that person, and am I gonna make that person mad? What am I saying? Am I saying something that's gonna make them feel I've hurt them? I mean, there's all this mental capacity that's very stressful for most people, and most people don't want to think that much about you because they don't care, unless you're an actual like boyfriend or family member or something like that. Most people don't want to spend that much mental capacity on one person, and that's what I find to be more dangerous. That's what's more dangerous, is you're annoying people. You're making people have to think about you more than they should have to think about you because you're needy and you're desperate, you know, and you want people to have to think overly about you. And like I say, that's where microaggressions comes from, and that's what I believe to be the androphobia, which is a real diagnosis, a clinical diagnosis, and I think it's a very real problem in society, that there's a lot of women that a lot of women don't actually, it's kind of like, look at it this way. if you have a friend who is anorexic, and you're not anorexic, and you're really good friends with your friend, and your friend confides in you and tells you that they're anorexic, and then you start to feel like you're their best friend and maybe you should do something to help, but you think they look really pretty, and you're a young girl, so say you're 14, 15 years old or something, and you think she's really pretty and she's really skinny, and wow, all the guys like her, so I want to be like her, you know? So you start to think, hey, I should become anorexic. And that's how a lot of times it happens. A lot of girls become anorexic like that. I think the same thing is happening with the androphobic cult of feminism. A lot of girls get into college and don't know, or I mean, they're kind of annoying, kind of bitchy like most girls are, but they're not feminists. And they get into these classes where women, feminist women, will teach them that everything is a problem and that you'd have to point it out. And when you start teaching people these things and you're coming at it from an androphobic, autistic style, you're going to make a lot of girls indoctrinate into that. They're going to start to think this way when it's really not a problem for them because they're not androphobic. But you're teaching them to be androphobic by teaching them these things that all men are harming you in some way. And that's not the fact. The fact is, the way you take something is what makes it what it is. You know, I can walk down the street and somebody can call me, you know, a faggot. So what? You know, I can do with that statement what I want to do with it. I can say like, yes, I'm gay, or I can say I'm trans or whatever, you know, and I can take from that statement whatever I want, or I can choose to just ignore it and keep walking and act like I didn't hear the person, you know, which gives them no power. You know, the only power those people have over you is if you actually turn around and start yelling at those people. If you cross the street, if you start swinging punches, now you've made it a problem. You're the problem, not them, you know. So this whole microaggression thing that everybody has to point out everything and all this stuff, the fact is, if you have to point it out, then it's not a problem. I'm always talking about stupid smart people on my page. That's the stupidest smart thing I can say. You know, if you have to point it out, then it's not a problem. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys like this video. If you want me to do more like this, just leave it in the section below. Share, like, and subscribe. Have a nice day.
So don't let them steal your life.